What is up, everybody, and welcome in to the very first, very special, highly anticipated first episode of Money Cannons, 1796 Sports, brand new betting podcast with our main betting guru, one Loose Bets. Loose Bets, how are you doing this evening?
Good man, good man. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Now,
Awesome.
just to introduce the listeners, what is your betting style? What do you look for when you're looking at the board for any sporting event? Just what do you look for
That
on?
is that's a good question. And every better is going to have a different approach. One of the most popular things now is looking at what's called expected value, which is a very scientific way of betting. Uh, and if you're going to litter the board with a whole bunch of props, then sure, that's the way to go. But personally, I like to just pick a few games that I feel like I have a good idea on, and try to take advantage of lines that I think are either soft or uh, maybe we might know going into the game that there's a certain game plan that somebody's going to approach, and we can take advantage of that. So, one thing I don't like to do, uh, especially in college football, I really don't like taking big spreads. You get Ohio State versus Akron, and it's what, like a 42-point spread, and that's to me an impossible game to bet on. You never know when they're going to take the starters out. You never know, even if they take the starters out, are those, second and third line guys going to still go all out and put up the points? So those huge spreads are tough. I do like taking games that are a little bit more evenly matched, and I also am not a huge fan of taking these just 50,000 plus uh, parlays, 13 leg parlays that you take
Yeah,
all the high, well, um, the gosh, why can't I think of the not the underdogs, the favorites? You know, you take all these minus 1300s and put them in a 13 leg parlay, and then you end up having Michigan lose to East Tennessee State or something. Um, so that to me is not a winning strategy. I like taking single bets. Get your minus 110, minus 120. Probably, sometimes if it is a minus 200, minus 300, I might take a little parlay on it with another decently favored team.
yeah,
Um, just go for the winning strategies.
yeah, for sure. I think in my eyes, the way I look at a board, I mean, I try to look for where the sports book, where Vegas is trying to screw you,
Hmm, hmm.
the the weird lines,
Right, right.
the so-called rat lines. I I definitely stay away from the
Yeah.
multiple leg parlays. And I mean, the only time I ever do that is if I'm betting like less than a dollar just
Right,
for fun.
right, right. A little
Just
YOLO.
yeah, if I hit it, I make $500 on a $1
There you
bet.
go.
Whatever. I would never put too many units on that. And is that a
No.
thing that you look at too, Loose? Do you go with the unit method?
Yeah, I do use a unit system. But it's going to be pretty rare for me. I'm a really conservative bettor. It's going to be really rare for me to do. I'm definitely not pulling these like, oh, Mega Max whales and 10 U's.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I can think on maybe one hand that I've ever played. More than 5 U.
Hmm.
Most of the time, it's going to be one to two, maybe a two and a half, but not much more than that.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I do, and share your thoughts on this, please, Mister Luce. Like I also stay away from big spreads, but back
Right.
back 2 years ago when Tennessee had that, the Tennessee Vols had that high powered offense.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would always take the first quarter spread against whoever
Yeah.
they were playing.
Yeah.
Do you find a niche like that
I
on on a given team and just ride it the entire season?
I haven't. Well, this season yet to be seen.
Hmm.
But yeah, you are absolutely right. Gosh, in that 22 season, um, I want to say we scored a touchdown in every first quarter,
Hmm.
except for like one game that year. I can't remember which game it was, but we we were just absolutely dominant in the first quarter, first half of those games that year. Um, to speak on that, I'd say there are certain teams like let's look at Iowa for instance. Iowa's not a high point scorer, but they're going to go into some games that have a total that seems a little bit on the higher end. And I haven't looked at their specific numbers, but just off the top of my head, I'd probably be looking to lean on unders for Iowa. You got a team that can barely score,
Hmm.
but a defensive powerhouse. So, I mean, they might have games that end under 10.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
uh,
for sure. I mean the and another thing, whenever that niche, and I'll use another example from Tennessee
hmm
in last season, whenever that niche is broken, like
right.
Tennessee was only the over the scoring total for Tennessee in the Citrus Bowl against Iowa was minus 20 and a half.
hmm
And that was everybody assuming that Joe Milton was the better quarterback throughout the
hmm
year, and that's why he was played. And I hammered that team total,
Mm,
and
really?
it worked out perfectly because we all know Nico should and will be better. So just
Ben Joe for sure. Yeah, I have to. I'm a big Joe fan. I liked Joe a lot. I love what he did at the university. I know the fan base is mixed on Joe. I think even now most people still like him after the fact, but I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad that last season turned out the way it was. I got all the trust in Josh Heupel, making that decision.
yeah, for sure. It's just another example of how I look at sports betting. It's just you have to watch out for when the trends are done,
Right.
and so. But if that's a good enough introduction in your eyes, Luce, unless you have anything else to say, we'll go ahead and look at the board for
Right.
the true week one.
True
Um,
week one, man. It's been a long off season, and I've been looking forward to this week. How about you?
oh my god, dude, I'm bursting at the seams for meaningful football. I mean, the Florida State and Georgia Tech game,
Yeah.
I didn't have any action on it, but I
Okay.
thought that this is the worst feeling as a guy who bets on sports.
Mm-hmm.
You think in your mind, I'm going to take Georgia Tech, and I
Right.
thought that on Saturday morning, and I did not end up pulling the trigger. I was just going
Yeah.
to bet the number too. So
Well,
they did,
you should have known to take it. I posted it like what 2 or 3 days
yeah,
before the game when Georgia Tech brought those Irish themed helmets out. I knew it was game over.
yeah, exactly. I mean, to the folks listening, we got a success story even before the
Right.
true week
Right.
one has kicked off. So
I think
let's
they were three. I think they were plus 330, plus 300 or plus 330 to win that one.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's some good value, real good
Definitely.
value. But first game on the board
Yeah.
on our board, we have the Penn State Nittany Lions at
Right.
the West Virginia Mountaineers, and that line is right.
Let's see. We've got minus Penn State's favored -8. The over under is going to be 51 and a half. A lot of I don't know if you were able to find any better information. I looked at a couple of the books. I couldn't find first half lines for a lot of these games.
Hmm.
Sometimes in a game that's close like this, I like to take one of the half lines instead of the game total. But
Yeah.
this is a really interesting matchup. Um, Penn State going into West Virginia. West Virginia ended that season really, really strong. Green was really coming into his own, able to move the ball with his feet, throw the ball through the air. They've got a great a running back. He's a big, big, strong guy, uh, pretty quick. Not the fastest guy on the field, but he's more that power running style. But you put him against that Penn State defense, I think they're going to have a hard time moving the ball. What this game comes down to me is who gets the momentum early.
Yeah.
West Virginia ends up picking a turnover up against Aller pretty early.
Yeah.
I could honestly see them pulling this game away. I've gone back and forth on this game really probably all day. I think this is the hardest one that I've had to pick, but I'm going to go with West Virginia at the +8. Uh, Not going to touch the total, but I do like West Virginia to keep it close.
Yeah. This is one of those lines I was talking about earlier.
Right.
It seems like they want you to take West Virginia as a home underdog because it started out, I think, at Penn State -10, and
Really? Okay.
it's been betted down to -8.
Uh
And
huh.
you can look at it as the home underdog. You think they're going to cover that, or you can look at it
Right.
as Vegas is trying to trick you here. And
Right. Right.
I think I fall under. I think I fall under Vegas trying to trick you.
Yeah.
And if I were to bet this game, I haven't decided if I am or not. I think that I would go with Penn State -8.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that that's a bad call at all. If 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 Penn State plays the way that they should, now I think West Virginia's being really disrespected going into the season. But if
Yeah.
Penn State plays the way that they should, then yeah, they should cover easily. I'm just counting on West Virginia to get them a little shaky early, and then get the crowd in it and keep that game pretty close.
All right. So I'll write this down. You got
Yeah,
Penn State. No, you have West
we're gonna.
Virginia plus
Yep,
eight.
I got West Virginia +8. We're gonna keep a little season tally going.
Absolutely.
We should do that. Yeah, we should do that.
So let's see. Penn State -8 for me. You got West Virginia
Got them at the +8.
+8. All right. There you have it. First matchup. Any more thoughts on that one, Luce?
No, I think we've covered that one. I'm giving the edge to the home crowd, giving the edge to West Virginia, giving them some mix up early
Yeah.
in that one.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So moving on down the board,
Sure.
we're heading down to the swamp where the Miami Hurricanes coming
Right.
into Ben Hill Griffin Stadium,
Mm-hmm.
and Miami right now -2.5, and
Yeah.
over under at 53.5.
That line to me is insanely low, especially. I don't like to get too superficial with things. I don't like to read into things too much, but it did work last week with Georgia Tech. Miami, I don't know if you saw, but they just dropped their uniform kit for the game. They're going to be decked out in all white,
Mm.
so they're going with the all white in Florida's whiteout stadium. I think that's a pretty, power move. Miami should really tear them up, honestly. I mean, Florida's defense is not good. I still think Graham Mertz is overrated. They will score, and Miami has a tendency to crumble. But yeah, Miami's covering that. I'm taking Miami -2.5 all day on that one.
Yeah, I think I agree. I'm just not a believer in Florida. I
Right.
think there's a lot of pressure on Billy Napier. There's a lot of pressure on the
Right.
program as a whole, and surprise, surprise, you have a top 25 team coming in week
Yeah.
one. So I I just don't know how they're going to handle it. But based on what they've done the last 2 years, probably not well. But and then the other side of this is people will look at you know the Utah game at Florida
Yeah.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
or they'll look at the Tennessee game last year.
Mm-hmm.
Early in
Hmm.
the season at home, Florida has fared well against ranked opponents, but I just don't see it this year.
No. No. I mean, from an outsider's perspective, everything looks like, Florida's just straight up on fire.
Yeah,
It seems like the locker room is split. They've got all these NIL deals that are going to lawsuits, and from what
yeah,
sounds like to me, they've basically been telling these athletes, giving them promises, and then backing out, after the fact. I don't
yeah.
know that whole story. That's probably another talk for another day. But yeah, Miami should run all over them. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 9 or 10 point game.
Yeah, it's another weird line. I guess you know Vegas is trying to draw in
Yeah,
the Florida homers. I don't know.
right.
I think me trying to think what Vegas is thinking is a lot of times
Yeah,
futile. But
yeah,
I don't know. But I'm on the same page. I think the Hurricanes roll in that one and cover. I said it on the Chattanooga preview last night with Jim and Eli. I think they would cover 12 and a half. Like
hmm
I
yeah, yeah. I could see that.
but any more thoughts on that one?
No, we got Miami rolling them.
Absolutely. So next on the board, Notre Dame at
Yeah,
Texas A&M.
yeah.
Um, Texas A&M -3 over under 46 and a half.
I think this is a great game to take the under on. You've got two somewhat questionable offenses. And Notre
Mm-hmm.
Dame's offense is better, but their offensive line is not good.
Yep.
They're really young. Texas A&M's defensive line is very strong, so I'm expecting them to have trouble moving the ball. On the other end of the field, I mean, last season Texas A&M wasn't the best at getting into the end zone. We held them. What did they score 13 against us? I
Yeah.
don't remember what that game was. I thought it was 13. But yeah, I would take the under. I really think that's the best bet in this game. If I'm gonna pick a team, I would pick Notre Dame to cover. But really, I think the way to go is to play the under on this game. And I kind of did some searching around and looking at the handle, the public handle. It looks like most people are on the over.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really kind of gives me even more confidence in this play, honestly. So I really like to take the under on this one and Notre Dame to cover.
Gotcha. Well, I mean 46 and a half for a college game
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is a pretty
Pretty low.
low.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said, if a lot of people are taking that over, you know,
Right.
I think that's the reason they put it that low. I mean,
Yeah.
I just, but like you said, these teams struggled to score last year.
Mm-hmm.
You have a new staff with Texas A&M. You have what's Notre Dame's coach's name? That young, charismatic dude.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I can't remember his name.
let's
I know
see.
they've got Riley Leonard,
Yeah,
coming
transfer
back. Yeah.
transfer from Duke.
Right.
Their
So he's going to
coach's
get to see a
name.
little bit of action.
Yeah. Um, but I think Notre Dame. I think if I do bet this game, I think it'll be Notre Dame to cover.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
if like just betting the number, that's what I would do. And me personally, I would stay away from the total just
You
because
don't
of
like totals?
I. It's just when they're that low, I don't like them. You know,
I think
I think
the only reason I could get scared on it at all is if we get some defensive scores. But
yeah,
other than that, I'm not worried about that total at all.
yeah. I mean, and this is why you're the professional. So people
So called.
listening, listen to Luce
Right.
over me. I'm just here to offer my thoughts, but
We shall see.
yeah. So
Hey, it is early college football season, and we can look at last week. Last week was absolutely crazy.
hmm
Not a single team covered. Not a single team covered the favorite. You had two upsets, really.
hmm
One of them, you can kind of look back up at it and think that that was just a horrible line. Uh, they never should have been favored against New Mexico.
oh, what team was that? The FCS team.
Yeah, right. Montana State.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
weren't they like double digit
Dude,
favorite?
it was like minus 13 and a half. I think it
That's
was minus 13 and a half. Um,
yeah, that's wild. I mean, and then that's like I think the point you're trying to make. I mean, early in the season, things are just so you know
right.
they're so
Bizarre.
sporadic.
Right.
Just on the betting aspect and just on the field in general. It's
Hmm.
the cake is not baked yet.
Yeah.
It's not
And
even close to being
that's
baked.
not going to be applicable to, a lot of these better teams with veteran players.
Hmm
Experience goes a long way in setting the tone early in a season. So we can look at, I think, on that in that game in particular, Notre Dame has the most experienced defensive side of the ball. You got a handful of guys that are going to be All Americans. Got a couple of award candidates on that defense. So I'm expecting those guys to step up.
Yeah,
You got Wegman coming back for Texas A&M. He's going to get his first reps since October of 23, and I see him struggling. So
yeah. So your best bet for that one is the under, and my
that's what I'm feeling. Yeah,
and I I think I'm feeling Notre Dame
Notre Dame. Yeah,
plus three.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. Any more thoughts on that one, Luce?
No, no.
All right, moving on down, heading to Allegiant Stadium. USC Trojans, LSU Tigers on
Yeah,
Sunday night.
right.
Neutral site game, kind of tricky. That's another different type of bet that you know I think. But the line there, LSU -4, over under 64
Yeah.
and a half.
It's a really weird matchup, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time that LSU and USC even played.
hmm
I'd have to go back and look, but it's two programs that are in a interesting position. Uh, USC's offense is going to look entirely different than it did last year. LSU, I feel like I mean, they went 10-3 last year, but to me, it seems like Brian Kelly's still kind of struggling to get his feet in the SEC.
hmm
That said, LSU really should win this game easily. Uh, I would definitely take their line to cover. You said it's -4, right?
Yes.
Yeah, -4. That should be an easy cover. I don't think I'd touch the total in this game. It could be very high scoring. I mean, it could be a 70-point total or more,
Yeah.
and it could just as easily be 50 or less. But LSU should just roll all over them.
Yeah. I mean, we also touched on this game last night in the
Hmm.
Chattanooga preview. Me and Eli, we had a conversation about both of these teams last year had just exceedingly terrible defenses, but
Yeah,
our thought process was a bad defense in the SEC is light years ahead of a bad
right.
offense in the former
Yeah,
Pac-12. So
easily.
like that's the reason. I'm also leaning LSU
Uh-huh.
-4, and I think a lot of people would say the best bet for this game is the over, just because of
Hmm. Hmm.
the projected defensive incompetence. But
Right, right.
I would steer clear of that, just in my opinion. I mean, early in the season, a lot of times the defenses are ahead of the offenses,
Hmm.
and with your offenses rely much more on the chemistry, the flow, the all these things. So I like I would just stay away from it and just stick with LSU
Yeah,
-4.
LSU to cover. So we're both on that one, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
All right,
we are in a agreement there.
that's good.
Do you have any thoughts on my take on the total there?
If I had to take one, I'm pretty sure I would lean on the over as well. Um, I think I would compare this game to LSU's matchup with Missouri last year,
Hmm.
and that was a very high scoring game. That was a 80 point game, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it was a doozy.
I could easily see this game going just about identical to that. However, I think LSU will win a lot easier than they did against Missouri.
Yeah, I concur. I definitely concur. Moving on down the
Yes,
board,
sir.
we have Clemson Tigers versus Georgia Bulldogs
Yeah.
in Atlanta. Another neutral site game, but really, let's
Really
be
not neutral.
yeah, let's be
Yeah.
honest.
You've got
If you're playing in Atlanta, it's going to be a lot of Georgia Bulldogs
you
fans. I
you probably have more Georgia fans in Atlanta than you do in Athens or the surrounding areas, I would easily say.
Yeah, I don't think that's incorrect at all.
Basically a home game.
Yeah, but the line there, you got Georgia -13 and a half, over
13 and a
under,
half.
over
48 and
under.
a half.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah. So this is to me, I mean, and I'd be willing to say it's everybody. This is the marquee matchup of the week. Um, Two programs both expecting to make it to the college football playoff, I would say.
Yeah,
In fact, either of these teams missing the college football playoff would be a huge miss on expectations for the season. Uh, If Clemson is to miss it, I mean, you'd have to think that Dabo's on the hot seat. Um,
yeah.
Georgia, not so much. Although the fans would be pretty rowdy, they'd be probably blaming something uh, on missing the playoff, blaming some kind of unfairness.
Hmm.
Maybe the Athens Police Department. Uh, as much as I would love Clemson to stay close in this game, I just don't see it. Uh, their defense is a bit more inexperienced. They're only returning like five starters from defense last year.
Damn.
They're going to be really, really inexperienced going up against an unfortunately very good Georgia offense. Um, they did lose Brock Bowers. Supposedly, their tight end situation is just as good as Brock was. I don't know if I could believe that, but well, and then they're also going to be down to what, the third or fourth string running back.
Hmm.
I don't think that'll matter. When has a backup running back ever been a problem for Georgia?
No, they have a factory in somewhere in
seems like
the
seems
like
like half the time the backup is better than the starter.
yeah. I mean, it's just the wealth of talent. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I'm gonna. Uh, I almost want to take this just in hopes that I do miss, but I'm going to take Georgia at minus 13 and a half.
Yeah, and I, just looking at this game, the initial line, I think a lot of people would say, "Wow, that's a pretty big line." But you got to remember, like we started this talk with about this game, it is basically going to be a Georgia home game.
Basically a home game. Somewhat of
Dabo,
a revenge game.
yeah, for sure. I mean, and Dabo's roster. Like he refuses to use the transfer portal. He
Yeah.
hasn't fully embraced the NIL
Mm-hmm.
aspect. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not as good as it can be. And but me thinking all this, me thinking the line is too big, and me thinking other people would think the line is too big, and people, taking Clemson, and me would say, okay, I would say, excuse me, I would say, okay, I'm going to take Georgia then, because
Right.
people will look at that in that way. I'm twisting myself in knots here, but I promise I will land the plane.
Yeah.
To contradict my own thoughts, what I think, because this is how sports betting works. What you think will happen based based on just the line, a lot of times doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm going to take Clemson to cover
All
13
right.
and a half.
Okay. I
I
can
mean,
respect that. I can respect that.
like, just not trusting myself makes me trust myself.
Yeah. That's a you just went, back and forth, 3 or 4 times. You had me mixed up a little bit, but I can totally respect that. I mean, the reality of it is, as much as we hate on Clemson as a fan base, Dabo is still a very good coach. Um, his stubbornness and using the transfer portal and stubbornness with the NIL situations kind of confounds me. But at the end of the day, he is still a very good coach, very good football mind. Um, on the flip side of the ball, Kirby is just as much as well. Uh, but yeah, this game could honestly go either way. I'm taking Georgia in hopes that Clemson might pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah. My whole spill there was basically like one of those knots that looks like it's all tangled up, but if you just yank
Mm-hmm.
on both ends, it is not really tangled up at all. Um, like it's just the fact that what I think will happen will not happen.
You
That's why
got
I'm
to
taking
voodoo
Clemson.
reverse yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. You have
Yeah.
to reverse theory yourself. That's why I'm taking Clemson. Any more thoughts on this one, Luce?
No, I'm looking forward to watching that game. I'm hoping that it's still a game by halftime or after halftime.
Yeah. I mean, I guess some people might say the early start will affect things,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, but I don't think that'll factor in
Is it? Is
really.
it a what time is that game?
It is 11 a.m.
Oh
Central.
wow. Oh, 11 Central, noon Eastern. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I really don't think it'll come into effect. But final answer, me, Clemson plus
All
13 and a
right.
half, you, Georgia minus 13 and a half.
Yeah.
Moving
Mm-hmm.
moving on down. Let's talk about your under the radar,
Right.
maybe not talked about the most bet of the weekend, the game that people aren't looking at really. Let's hear it.
Every week I like to go try to pick out a game that just looks like an outlier to me. Um, it could be one of the marquee games. This week it ends up not being one of the marquee games. I've got Boise State and Georgia Southern. Boise State is covering is getting 13 points in this game. I think that they're going to easily cover that 13 points. Boise State is one of the probably 4 or 5 teams that is expected to come out of the G5 and make it into the college football playoff. Boise State should absolutely cover that 13 points with ease. I would not be surprised if they've got it covered by halftime.
It's really interesting. I mean, that's the kind of things that made me want to do this podcast,
Yeah.
Mister Luce. I mean, I would never have picked that game out
No.
off the board. I mean, this is the content that we're going to provide,
Right.
ladies and gentlemen. Like even on game day and week zero,
Hmm.
some of the people on that panel, your Desmond Howards, your Kirk Herbstreits, had Boise in that playoff, and
Yeah.
the only reason that line is probably that low is because it's at Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
But I don't think that'll matter. I mean,
I mean,
how many
in
people go to a Georgia Southern game?
yeah, in reality, a home game for a non P5 school, there's not a ton of home field advantage a lot of the time. So
Hmm.
that's just a write off to me. That'd be like us going to Bowling Green or something. That's
Yeah,
sure it's a home game for them, but it's not. uh, Georgia State. Actually, I don't know. Have you ever seen their stadium?
Georgia State
No,
or
Georgia Southern.
I have not.
They actually have a surprisingly kind of nice stadium. I was surprised when I saw it, but yeah, they're not gonna get any kind of home field advantage there. Boise State should absolutely run all over them. I would not be surprised if they cover that line by halftime.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I, again, I would never have picked that game out in a million
Yeah,
years, but
that's what I'm here
that's
for.
that sounds beautiful. That sounds
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
So I'm putting that to me, that's my play of the week.
Okay, okay. Let's make that a segment, a recurring
Play of the
segment.
week.
Play of the week,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
edition number one.
I love it.
So
I need to make a statement about that before you put too much trust in that.
okay,
I have this uncanny ability that the plays that I tend to be the absolute most common or confident in are the ones that tend to miss. And the ones that I'm the most shaky about are just bangers every time. So it's kind of weird. But I'm gonna turn that around this season. I'm gonna lock it in. We're gonna knock them out. I'm taking Boise State to cover -13, taking that to the bank. If I was going to make any of the plays that we talked about this week a 2U, that one's going to be a 2U.
gotcha. I mean, just say it with confidence. You know,
2U, Boise
manifest your.
State
There you go.
-13 all day long.
There you go. Manifest that play of the week.
You know what? The thing that's going to get me is when they're up, 16 or something, and Georgia Southern comes down and gets a garbage field goal to push it. That's going to happen probably.
I doubt it. I doubt
Nah,
it.
yeah, they should
So
cover pretty easy.
yeah, and I'll in the future, listeners, I will also have a play of the week. I will try
Nice.
to match
Let's do
at,
it.
and we'll keep a tally on the plays of
Yeah,
the week, the
play of the
best
week.
bets, the best bets too. But
There we go.
so this game on Thursday night,
Oh yeah,
the
the true
the
marquee matchup, right? In at
yeah
least one person in this universe's mind.
yeah the Bison Bowl, or Bison Bowl if you're from North Dakota State. North Dakota State at Colorado.
Uh huh.
Colorado getting -10 and
Is it up to
over.
-10 now? It was 9.5 earlier.
I'm seeing -10. Let me just
Hmm.
refresh the page here. Make sure we're still looking at the same
Oh, it
thing.
easily could have moved.
Yeah.
Colorado's getting the most action. That they have absolutely just hammered that Colorado line.
So you're saying that game has got the most action of
Yeah,
any.
it's the most bet game this week.
There you
Right
go.
now, I'm sure that could possibly change by Saturday. We're looking at a game that's tomorrow versus the rest of the games are on Saturday.
Yeah. So what are you feeling in Boulder tomorrow night?
So the only play that I'm confident in that game is I do like the first half line for Colorado. First half line is 6.5.
Hmm.
I think Colorado will cover that. I honestly think that they'll cover the whole game as much as I wouldn't like them to. Um, they should pretty much run away with it. I think they're going to be an okay team. I don't think I see them winning more than 6 games this season. But they should be able to put together at least some wins.
Yeah. I mean, and give Colorado, whoever their athletic director is, credit. Just moving to the new look Big 12. I mean,
Hmm.
they really don't have a true cupcake game on their entire
No,
schedule.
no, they've got a pretty tough season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the probably the worst opponent would be North Dakota State. I
Yeah,
guess you could argue Colorado State,
yeah,
but other than that, it's conference play really,
right.
and Nebraska out of the Big Ten at
Yeah,
Nebraska. But I I think again that's a line that people will look at and say, you know,
slam it.
the yeah the North Dakota State hopefuls will say, okay, I trust that we can cover 10, but I really I think I'm on the same page. I think Colorado does win more, but win by more than 10. I think
Right.
they'll win by 17 to 24 points probably.
What I will say is, I go and I look at the public handle. I look at what the money and what the amount of bets are on any particular game, and if there's a game where, and in this case, the handle and the percentage of bets is over 80% on Colorado, I just out of good practice could not follow that. I would rather pass on this game and not take anything than ride that hard with the public.
Oh, I love that. You are not about no sucker bets.
No, no, sir. I
I
will I
go
will
ahead.
pass on that all day long. But if I'm going to take a bet here, and I honestly think that this is a good bet, Colorado minus 6.5 first half, that should be a pretty easy one.
Yeah, I mean, it just it makes so much sense. If North Dakota State does make it a game, I do think it'll be due to them finding their feet a little bit in the second
Hmm.
half. So I do think I'm on the same page 100%. Any more thoughts on that one, Luce?
Ah, no, there's a lot of eyes. There's a lot of eyes going to be watching that game. It's probably smart of them to make it on a Thursday.
Yeah,
One thing you got to give that AD, and one thing you got to get Prime is that they know how to get people talking about them.
yeah. I mean, and I think that's a majority of the reason that is the most bet game
Yeah.
up to this point in the
Mhm.
week leading up to week one. Um, to conclude things tonight, let's hear what you think will happen in this Tennessee game. Is there
Yes.
any bets that you're looking at for that? Is there any smart action at all for the Chattanooga Mocs strolling into Neyland Stadium as 38.5 point underdogs?
Hmm. So 38 and a half. I already talked about it earlier in the show. I don't like taking big spreads like that. Um, I also have a personal rule. I don't ever bet on the Vols.
Yeah.
I actually don't bet on any Tennessee teams. I won't bet on Memphis. I won't bet on Tennessee. I won't bet on the Preds. I won't
Hmm.
bet on the Grizzlies, the Titans. I don't bet on Tennessee teams. It's almost like a superstitious thing. Um, but with that said, I would. I think it's going to be right on the number. I think it's going to be 38 or 39.
Yeah.
Uh, what I've got Chattanooga at 9.5, and I've got us at 48.5. I could see us scoring easily more. I could see us scoring up to 60. I don't think Heupel's going to let that happen.
Yeah.
Um, I honestly could. Well, what I'm expecting from this game, and have you gone to some of the practices?
I have not.
No, you haven't. Okay, I could definitely be wrong, but what I'm expecting from this game, I'm expecting Josh to come out with a very very limited playbook. Um, he might run a few trick plays here and there just to see if they work or not. But
Hmm.
I'm expecting him to use a very limited playbook. Uh, we might pick up a score or two on defense.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know what? What I've called this game. I'm going to give you a number. I'm going to say Tennessee wins. I got the final score at 44-13.
Okay. Like I I'm so the play that I'm looking at is putting some faith like I had 2 years ago in the first quarter spreads.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna see if that works just in this first game to just dip
Yeah.
my dip my toes into the water back in that niche.
Yeah.
But I I think the play really for this one. I mean the spread, like you said. I mean it's always hit or miss with these type of spreads and these type of games. I think the play is over. I mean I don't see a world where Tennessee doesn't get into the mid to upper 40s,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I I also don't see a world where Chattanooga doesn't put up at least 10.
Really?
So and the over under is 56.5. So I think that would be my play just on the whole game and the special one. Like I said, first quarter spread.
Yeah. What is the first quarter spread, by the way?
See, I don't know that, but I'm still gonna bet it.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, if you found it, then you did better than me. I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find any spreads for a first quarter or for half for most of these games on Saturday.
Maybe they're not out yet, but I know for a fact I rode that train all year
Yeah.
long in 2022.
I don't
Uh,
know. I would expect it's probably going to be, they'll probably put it something funky like 8.5.
yeah, like a lot of times in 2022 against opponents like this, it was around 9.5.
Yeah.
Like you're betting on Tennessee to score on their first two possessions,
Right.
and I, I just fully believe in the quarterback. I fully believe in the offense. So
Mm-hmm.
that that is my main play.
Yeah. Oh, we're
So
going to blow this game out of the water, and it shouldn't even be competitive. Um, my only reason for kind of hanging on the lower end is that I just think I don't think Josh is going to try to do too much. Just
yeah,
get the guys some experience, get them some reps, get them warmed up, have them experience the Neyland Stadium atmosphere.
yeah. I mean your 44-13 also hits that over. So
Yeah, it does. It does. Just barely.
yeah, I
That's
mean
why I picked it. That's you can actually bet that on DraftKings. It's plus 7,500.
the
That
it,
exact score 44-13.
yeah those are the long shots,
Oh yeah.
the inexperienced
Yeah.
better bets. But I'll tell a quick anecdote before we hop off here.
Okay,
I
go for it.
In the first round of the NCAA tournament, Tennessee versus St. Peter's,
Mm-hmm.
I had final score Tennessee 83, St. Peter's 51,
Mm-hmm.
and that damn final score was 83-49.
Oh my gosh.
I was oh that was the most stressed I've ever
Did
been
you
in.
actually bet it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my god. What was the odds on that?
It was at least
It had to have been plus 10K at least.
yeah, it was something else. It might have been in the 7,500 to 8,500 ranges, but it would have been a massive payout on a.
Easily.
I think it was a $5 bet. I was
Yeah.
so close. But
That's
like
wild.
like I said, I mean, these are the things you go through as a
Right.
dabbler in sports betting,
Right.
and
Oh man, I could go all day about some bad hooks that I've had.
yeah, I
Hey, when I was talking about, not betting on Tennessee teams, I- I've never bet on the balls. That's been a rule my whole life. But I moved it to the whole state of Tennessee.
mhm.
I had a parlay one night. It was an 8-leg parlay. I can't remember the exact odds, but they were over 1,000. And it came down to the very last game of the night. It was the Grizzlies. Um, Want to say that they were playing the Rockets, uh, but it came down to the very end of the game. Grizzlies hit a half court shot
Oh God,
to to bust me. A half court shot, and it was meaningless. It was completely meaningless. And I blacklisted the Grizzlies right then and there.
I mean,
I won't touch a player prop. I won't touch anything on the Grizzlies ever again.
that's completely valid. And for every horror story like that, you have a miraculous success story.
Oh, easily, easily.
Um, and the final thing I'll say, unless you have anything else loose, always be responsible. Don't bet your
Yes,
mortgage.
right.
Don't bet your mortgage. Just bet to have fun. If you win money, good. If you don't, move on with your day.
Definitely. The unit system is a really, really good system to go by. The biggest reason that I see betters, what tends to happen is these betters, they'll go on this crazy hot streak.
Hmm.
They'll win 10, 15 in a row. They'll think that they're untouchable, but the the second that they go heavy on a game, that's when they lose.
Yep.
So the unit system just keeps you honest. I don't care how confident you are in a bet. Don't go high on the units. Just keep them to 1U, 2U, and try to chip away over time. You're not going to become wildly rich from gambling, but it's something that you can have fun with.
Yeah. Load the money cannons responsibly.
Right, right,
Load them up, and if they hit, you know, have you know, have filet mignon for dinner instead of ground beef.
definitely.
Have some champagne instead of some Sutter Home.
Yep,
Just bet responsibly, and that's the last thing I'll say.
definitely. Hey, you know what? Actually, I did have one more bet that I took uh, outside of college football this week.
Hmm.
I'm looking ahead at the NFL season. My favorite bet for the NFL season, and I hate to say this because I'm actually a Panthers fan. I've got the Panthers at under 5.5 wins, and I'm gonna be a little surprised if they win more than two. So that under 5.5 just seems free.
I mean, Panthers. You could. I'm sorry. I mean, it's not much better for me as a Titans season ticket
Yeah.
holder, but it's still a little bit better.
Well, the Titans could surprise some people this year.
Oh, I love it. I love to hear that from a sports betting
I hate
expert too.
I'm not, I don't like I'm not going to call myself a Titans hater, but I'm not a Titans fan.
Hmm.
Just because I grew up a Panthers fan.
Yep.
Well, I can't say I grew up one. I I was a big D'Angelo Williams fan
Yep.
as a young buck. D'Angelo Williams went to the Panthers, and then so they just became my team because of that. Um, but yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good NFL season. We should have a good NFL season. A lot of people high on the Chiefs. Obviously, they're the favorites. Uh, I'd love to see if Hendon can get some starts. And honestly, I think there's a chance that he could.
Ooh.
Um, I don't think that he could do it by winning the job from Goff, but if Goff goes down, and I hate to say this because I don't want to wish anything on anybody. I don't even want to put that energy out there. But if for some reason Goff is unable to play, Hendon's going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm 100% on the same page. And again, I mean, we starting this podcast on the first week of college, but we'll
Right.
be we'll be covering some
Yeah.
NFL
Right.
bets as well, and
Definitely.
we'll see where the season takes us and see what our ledger looks like when all is said and done. And,
Got
and
got five months of fun looking ahead.
I'm looking forward to it, man. You got anything else
Definitely.
tonight?
No, let's get it.
All right, load them money cannons.
Yes,
Sign it
sir.
off.
Sounds good, man. Have a good one.